Okay, good afternoon. My name's Sophie and I am in events and comms here at the EAUC. Just to let you know, this is the first in our series of the SDG webinars, and this webinar will be recorded and it will be made available following the webinar up on the Sustainability Exchange and on our website. So if you want to go back and have a look, you're more than welcome to. I'm just going to go over a little bit of housekeeping. I hope everyone can hear me. If you can't, there is a little chat box down at the bottom. You just send me a message and I will try and troubleshoot from here. For the time being, however, I've placed everybody on mute just so we can keep background noise to a minimum, because obviously if you're typing away, it comes through quite loudly. If you do have a webcam, please turn it on, because it'd be good, and then we can have a really interactive webinar. If you don't, then you don't need to worry. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the webinar. So if we just keep questions to a minimum until then. We'd also like to say a big thanks to Georgie Goff from UWE and David Duncan from the University of Glasgow, who are also going to be contributing to our webinar today. But for the time being, I'm going to pass over to Iain, who is going to be leading the webinar, and I shall be talking to you a little later on. So over to you, Iain.
Thanks, Sophie. Welcome, everybody. Great to see such a great turnout. We're going to do something slightly back to front today. We had Susan Hill lined up to give us her insight as to how she presented the Accord to her executive and got it through a couple of weeks ago. But she's actually been struck down with appendicitis, so get well soon, Susan. We'll actually do it slightly back to front. I'm really delighted that the Chief Operating Officer and University Secretary of the University of Glasgow, David Duncan, has stepped in valiantly. David, thank you. I know you've got another meeting, so you've only got 5 or so minutes. But and then after you finish, David, and leave, I'll then pick up on a little bit more background to the SDGs and the Accord, and then bring in Georgie and Sophie, and then Q&A. It's only a short session, this. So, David, just a simple question. How did you go around presenting, signing the Accord to your board, to your executive, which you're a part of? What were the sort of the killer arguments that won them over? Over to you, David, and I'll just unmute you now.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, essentially, it wasn't that difficult, frankly, at Glasgow, because it went with the direction of travel of the senior management group. There had been an attempt to set up an oversight group on sustainability issues last year, and it slightly fell into abeyance when my predecessor left, and somebody sadly fell very ill. So it came at the same time as we were restarting a group to oversee issues of sustainability, and at the same time I presented the SDG Accord to the SMG. The argument really was that it would give us an external reference point that would be helpful in helping to frame our overall strategy and action plan regarding sustainability. But I think there were other issues in the minds of the SMG. For one thing, it kind of speaks to the values, it's very close to the values of the institution, probably not that different, to be honest, from the values of every other university. It was seen as something that went with the grain of what we want to achieve in terms of research impact. As a research-intensive university, obviously we're trying to show that our research is relevant to the world's problems, and the SDG Accord seemed to chime with that. And then thirdly, it was seen as a way of engaging the student body in a positive way, in partnership on issues that are of concern, not just to the university, obviously, but to the whole world. So I think beyond that, we haven't had a detailed discussion at our governing body level, at the university court, as we call it here. But I think it would go with the grain of their expectations on us to be involved in this sort of thing. And especially they're interested in the way that we collaborate with other universities. And obviously this is a global effort and a way to show that we are at one with other HE institutions around the world.
David, were there any concerns, for example, on what were the costs or the reporting commitments? And I appreciate the reporting is still in its infancy and what it actually looks like, but what were the sort of things that did come back as, well, how do we stand on this?
There weren't really any concerns raised about the resourcing issues. Our budgets are set for the year. It's up to people like me as Chief Operating Officer to allocate resources from within our budgets to support this. I mean, I suppose the one concern that I tried to head off in the past was the issue of leadership. So what we've done on the Sustainability Working Group is to go with a co-chair proposal with me on the one hand, representing the kind of professional services side, and then an academic champion, proper PACA researcher, if you like, on sustainability issues as the fellow chair, so that we're seen to be both academic professional support leadership. And I think that will give greater credibility, I think, across the institution.
Great. David, I know you've got to go, so thank you for that. If anyone does have any questions for David, do feel free to use the chat box. And what we'll do with David's generosity is maybe pass those questions afterwards to him. But I think many of us, David, are in the position of how do we sell this to our leadership, and how does it align with our own university or college's strategic priorities? So I know if Susan was here from Nottingham Trent, she presented a paper which we're actually going to be building on to create a generic resource on how do you present this to your executive. So I think that's where most of us will be. David, thank you for starting us off. I'm really grateful for you to step in like you've done. I will let you go, and we'll crack on with a little bit more background to the SDGs and the Accord. Thanks very much, David.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
So the SDGs, as many of you who were at the conference earlier in the year will know, were really quite an amazing feat of diplomacy between 193 of the world's countries to actually agree anything. And you know, basically, it was Ban Ki-moon saying, "Look, we can't have a plan B here because there isn't a planet B. So you know, we've got to step up." But we'd learned from the Millennium Development Goals, which were very developing world focused on poverty and hunger. We'd learned actually you can't solve those international problems in isolation. Actually, it's one planet, it's one connected world. We can't have sustainable development going on in universities and colleges in Ireland and the UK separately to international poverty alleviation or hunger. So the SDGs have come out, and they really are quite a staggering, ambitious world's to-do list. We focused on these at the last year's conference. Even next year's conference at Kiel in June, we'll focus on the collaborative dimension, because these are saying the world's problems are not do not exist in silos, do not exist in isolation. And actually, it's that interconnectivity, that codependency on each of the elements of the SDGs that is critical. You've got 17 goals, you've got an amazing whopping 169 targets. And I'm just going to say, in the end of that, I reduce them down to this. They're a global commitment to ending acute poverty, to ending injustice, inequality, and to ending climate change. Now, of course, as many of you will know, they are a range of environmental, of human, of economic and social things. So let's have a quick look at a few of the top four. So just to give you a sense for those of you who don't know about it. So ending no more poverty. So goal number 1 of the 17 is ending zero hunger, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. So quite a multi-ranging goal there. Goal 2. Sorry, that is goal 2. Goal 1 is no poverty. There is no poverty, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Goal 3 is good health and well-being. So it's ensuring healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. That's many of us will have that on our radar. And then number 4, quality education, ensure inclusive, equitable, quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for us all. And actually within 4, there's another sub-goal on ensuring that sustainability is embedded into teaching and learning. So we've all got a role to play there. So you can see that education really doesn't just sit in isolation in number 4. To deliver the goals, education is a transformational element of the delivery of all of them, and that's where we come in. So I'm just going to bring in Georgie Goff. Georgie is senior lecturer in ESD at University of West of England, one of our really early signatories to the Accord, and actually now their vice chancellor, along with the president of the Student Union, has signed. So that's a great model for us all. Georgie, I'm hoping you're there. I think you're on the phone. Can you hear us?
Do I unmute myself? There we go. No. Can we hear me now, Ian?
Yeah, far ahead, Georgie. So Georgie, why does UE see the SDGs as relevant and valuable to you as a university?
Well, I think very similar to what David was saying about the situation at Glasgow, that they really summarise the purpose of higher education in our minds. And UWE's got a long history of engagement with education for sustainable development. And I think we'd often had feedback from staff and students that as we started to try and promote a broader understanding of sustainability and sustainable development away from the traditional environmental perspectives, on one hand, it got people very excited, but they also sort of struggled to get to grips with the sense of the whole of what sustainable development was all about. So that the SDGs give us that kind of framework, and being a global agenda is also very useful because it helps us to think about, I suppose, what we're doing in higher education, and it's given us something to use to engage academics to not just think about what they're teaching in terms of curriculum content, but increasingly it's encouraging us to reflect on what sort of how we teach and why we teach. What is our end goal is to turn out graduates who can make a positive contribution towards the issues raised in the goal. So if you take that end point in mind, it gives you a perhaps a different perspective to curriculum design than might be otherwise the case. And of course, it's not. It's very much aligned to some of the broader current HE sector KPIs like employability and student experience as well, because if you deliver education for sustainable development in whatever discipline area it is, well, you have highly employable, highly motivated graduates. So it's really provided us with a useful single scaffolding, if you like, to promote the incorporation of the principles of education for sustainable development across the whole university. And that's just, as I say, not just academics, but professional services as well. And the point I've made before as well, Iain, is about the SDGs is, of course, that we can't underestimate how useful they are because they're very bright and colourful. So, you know, we've created our own maps, and displaying those at open days recently has, you know, really brought a lot of interest from prospective parents and students. So, you know, the fact that they are visually attractive is useful in its own right.
Georgie, we'll pick up on the mapping that you've done in a moment, but obviously you're an academic, and you've talked particularly about the academic value of the SDGs. But what we've noticed from UWE is just the sheer scale and diversity of your staff, your colleagues and students across all aspects of the university who've signed it. Because of course, it's not just the Vice-Chancellor that signs the Accord. Actually, there's space for all, and we have lost track of the number of colleagues. So what would you say is the value of the Accord and the SDGs across the diversity of the institution? So those in professional services and in campus management to students?
Well, for us, it's been useful at institutional level to demonstrate our sort of continued commitment to this agenda, to continue to be part of not just the UK, but the international community that are working on and with the SDGs. And then from the sort of perspective of engaging individual staff, particularly away from academic services, it's been to promote the sense that we can't deliver as an institution if we don't have individually committed members of staff and also students. So to take, I mean, our Assistant Vice-Chancellor, Jim Longhurst, and I are just embarking on our annual round of meetings with heads of department, for example. So to take to them the message of the Accord, as we've been doing, and saying, look, the institution is committed to this, and you as a sort of middle senior manager are part of our you know, delivery mechanism, if you like, and promoting the opportunity for them to demonstrate their commitment by signing their Accord has proven also very useful. And that's a process we will continue over the next few months, and that's also been extended into professional services, particularly heads of service in strategic marketing and communications, in student support services, and so on. So, and of course in our estates and facilities team. So yeah, offering it as an opportunity for individuals to demonstrate their commitment, not just to the institutional ambition, but to a global agenda is something that's really useful.
That's really helpful. So if anyone does have a question for Georgie, do please use the chat facility, but we'll have a Q&A at the end of this, and also ditto if you've any for David from the executive side. So Georgie, final question. You talked about a map there. So you, I think this was really at the start of UE's SDG journey. You sort of went, hold on a minute, we've got the SDGs. How do we work out? How do we start to sort out how we relate to them? And you did a mapping. Could you just tell us a little bit about that mapping, how you did it, why you did it, and where it's taking you?
In terms of the why, it was partly to try and start identifying what our baseline position was in terms of existing activity that related to the ambitions of the goals. So from that start point, and taking in conjunction with that our commitment that all students would have opportunities to learn about related issues, we thought, well, we can only really do that by looking at program level. So we started about coming up for 2 years ago to map. The first guinea pig program was our midwifery program, and they engaged very wholeheartedly in sitting back. And again, the start point for engaging those program team members was, would you agree that the purpose of this program is to develop students who are able to go out and contribute, in this case in the profession of midwifery, towards solving, you know, global problems? And of course the answer is yes, and it invariably is when we talk to program teams. So then, you know, the task becomes, okay, let's look at the program that you are delivering against the targets associated with the goals. And it's gone from strength to strength. We've managed to engage over 150 academic members of staff now in 25 program teams to undertake that mapping. And I know there are colleagues on the webinar who've seen this work presented by me and Jim before. Yeah, those maps are now being displayed in prominent positions across the university. They are used at open days as a sort of a demonstration of our conscious, the sort of conscious way that we develop and improve our curriculum to achieve global objectives. So yeah, there's on the UE sustainability website, there's an Education for Sustainable Development tab, and within that you can see a presentation that shows about 10 of the maps to date.
That's really helpful. So if anyone does have any chat questions for Georgie, please do type those in now. But while you're doing that, a question to you all. Georgie's talked about mapping, and I know a couple of others are doing it, or have done it, or are thinking about it. Are you considering it? Is it something you're interested in doing? Is it something you're doing or have done? If you could just sort of do a quick indication on the chat box, that would be very helpful. There's quite a large group on this webinar, so it'll be interesting little insight into where we're at. But while you do that, just a quick yes, we're doing it, or we're thinking of doing it, that will suffice. And if you do have any questions for Georgie, chip those in and we'll ask them later as we go. But let's just step up to the Accord itself. So, you know, we recognised the relevance of education, be it our campuses, be it our research, be it our teaching, our governance, our relationship with employers and communities around us, to the goals. So what do we do about it? And as you've heard from David and Georgie, the Accord gives a focus, a structure, and a bit of momentum to actually channel how we actually respond to these multi-headed beast of goals. So as many of you know, the EAUC 2 or 3 years ago brought together the world's university and college and student networks, or many of them anyway, to say, look, you know, we need to be singing with one voice here if we're going to have more impact and get more recognition for the value we bring. So the Global Alliance, as it was called, led by EAUC, can you believe, little old us, actually came up with the idea of an Accord. Now the Accord really, it was actually called a charter initially at our conference in Lancaster, but a group there really ran with it, and thanks to them, it's now live a few weeks ago. But basically, we have the world's college and student and university sustainability networks saying, right, let's collaborate on this. This is a global movement. Education needs to get better recognition and value for what we bring to society, to employers, to governments, and to future citizens and leaders. So this is a global activity that we've got going here, and all around the world, networks like ours, and there's networks doing this very webinar type thing in China, Japan, South America, North America, all over. Networks like ours doing exactly this and talking to our members and saying, look, this could be of interest and value to you, and this is how to do it. So it's still early days, though. We're on a journey together. There's some gaps. We don't quite know what reporting is going to look like, and that is an issue. So we're going to be setting up a group to look at reporting, because we're reporting to death, aren't we? We spend more time reporting than we actually have left to actually do. So we're not into that, but we're not also into greenwash. So actually, how can we find a mechanism to actually say what we're doing as a group, as a community, and have that recognised better by funders, by government, by the UN. So we'll talk about reporting in a minute. But there are two primary goals of the Accord. Number one is really critical. It's to inspire and celebrate the value we already bring. We are doing huge amount in our colleges and universities, in the influence we're having on young lives or older lives. So that needs to be better recognised, and across our campuses, be it in operations or in teaching, there's a new relationship we can bring to each other, like through Living Labs, to actually really strengthen our arm and show the value to society of what education brings. Actually, in the UN system, it's not always as well recognised as it should be. So there's a big role here to inspire others to do this, but also to celebrate the value we're bringing. But number two, the Accord is a commitment we're making to each other. It's saying, my university, my college, me as a sustainable manager, me as an academic, me as a student, actually have making a commitment in our private and our professional lives to really using the SDGs as a call for action, as a framework to focus our work. One of the most valuable things about SDGs is it's giving us a common language. Be you in industry, be you in government, be you in an NGO, wherever, we're actually now starting to use the same language of the global goals. And if you're looking for partnerships, for research work, for business engagement, for community engagement, actually speaking the language is fundamentally important. So it's a commitment we're making to each other to saying, yeah, we're going to use this and we're going to step up to do more. But being EAUC, we're going to be sharing that learning. And Sophie's going to talk to us in a moment about how we're going to try to facilitate the learning that's already out there. The great stuff you've heard from Georgie, there's great stuff that you're doing. We want to capture that, because what we're going to be doing annually is the United Nations has an annual meeting where the world's governments get together and they report back on how well they're doing. We're going to be feeding into that. We're going to be putting the value of education into that process. It's called the High Level Political Forum. And we're going to be asking you to give some sort of account or progress report, or maybe a learning resource. It could be a video, a blog, a case study of how you're doing, what you're focusing on, and what you're doing really well and where the gaps are. We're going to be asking you to give us some insight into that. It's not going to be a big bureaucratic nightmare. It can't be, we're too busy. But this is a great opportunity for us to pull together an annually report, and we'll build that report with academics and researchers at various universities, one of them leading one being Newcastle University, who are really driving the SDGs in the sector and beyond. We're going to be then pulling together your reports and presenting that to the High Level Political Forum. So this is a real opportunity to get better recognition of what we're doing, but also in a way that we're sharing that learning. So, and just before I bring in Sophie to talk about a little bit about our embryonic resourcing that we're going to do to support you doing this, and it is early days, so we won't have everything that we all need right from the start. Just to be clear, and I've said this and I'll say it again, so we're after your principal, your president, your vice chancellor, signing the Accord. That, if you look on sdgaccord.org, that's what we're after. But everyone on this call and every student you bump into and every colleague you bump into for the rest of the day are also invited to sign the Accord. We all have a role to play here. Okay, so we're after the head of the organization signing, and it's an impressive list globally already signing that, and it's still early days to get through executives and councils, but you are part of this, and lots of you have signed it, and we want more of you to do this and committing to that taking a stand and that sharing of the learning. But also it's signed by many sector bodies who are saying, yeah, we'll support this, we'll support you on your SDG journey. AUDE have signed, IEMA recently signed, PRME have signed, plus many other national and international networks have signed. So this is a really interesting movement that's growing. Sophie, could you tell us a little bit about the resourcing which we're just starting to build to support this?
Yes. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and share my screen so I can just take everybody to where I want to demonstrate what we're doing. Okay, can everybody see that? I think I'm echoing on another computer in the office, which is a bit weird, but everyone can see my screen, which is good. Okay, so what we have done on the Sustainability Exchange, which you can see, you can get to www.sustainabilityexchange.ac.uk. If you go to programs, you'll notice there is a new program, the SDG Accord. If you please click on it, it will actually take you to the homepage. Now, what we have here is we're beginning to create our resource centre. So you'll notice if you look at the sub toolbar down here, you'll see we've got everything from reporting to a marketing toolkit, and then all the way down goals 1 through 17. Underneath all these goals will be all the resources which are uploaded to the Sustainability Exchange. So that's everything from various bits and bobs we've already got on there to all the green gown finalists. Anything that we've got which is relevant will actually be filed underneath the different goals, which will be a resource for you to utilise. What I will say is if you'd like to submit a resource and you think it would be useful for your counterparts, your colleagues to look at, please click here to email, and you'll be able to submit your resource here. Now, if you are an SDG Accord signatory and you would like to join the SDG Accord Learning Network, this is our brand new learning network, and this is launching tomorrow. So it's very exciting. So this is something we're encouraging all of our signatories to join, and this is how you'll be able to share learning, to start discussions when you start to report back on the SDG Accord and how you're you're wanting to do that. Please join this here, and then you'll be able to utilise that resource. I'm also going to point you in the direction of the Marketing Toolkit. Now, this is a useful little thing where we're starting to collate information. Now, you can see here we've got some generic collateral. So once you've signed the Accord, please feel free to use any of these different graphics that we've got here. We've got an email footer. We've got a nice infographic which has some good details if you want to send it around, particularly to students and or colleagues, with a bit of information about what the SDG Accord actually is and some nice sort of stats and facts. I wonder if we can get that one up. So you see it's useful, it's nice, bright and colourful, and actually it gives you a little bit of a kind of a 1, 2, 3 as to different things you can do to encourage people to sign, promote, and to petition the Accord. We also have some endorsing partner collateral. So if you know people from other networks, then they're able to utilise these bits and bobs here as well. Coming soon, we have some email templates which you'll be able to use once you've signed the Accord and once you want to promote the Accord and do so on and so forth to your networks. And we'll also be having some handy how-to guides, which will be set just here. So as Iain mentioned, it is very much in its infancy at the moment, but please keep checking back to the Sustainability Exchange, and you will find that as time goes on, this will be built upon and it will become an incredibly rich resource for you to use when you're actually, once you've signed the Accord and once you're actually ready to promote the Accord and then report back on the Accord. So as I said, please do keep checking. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and hopefully I'll ping back onto the main screen, which I think I am. So if anyone has any questions on the resources and everything that's on there, please just drop me a note on the chat box, or you can email me on swoods@eauc.org.uk. So I think that's it from me. So I'm going to pass back to Iain so you can chat a little bit further.
Sophie, thank you very much. So if anyone does have any quick questions or resources which haven't been discussed, which you think could be useful to you, we're all ears. We're keen to know. So there's 2 resources that we are very clear are needed. And this webinar is just touching on them. One is, how do I take this to my executive? How do I present this in a way which they will support, they will see the value of and support? We're going to be bringing together, as I say, Nottingham Trent and a few of the other executives that have signed to actually build a simple guide on how do you align the Accord with your own institution's priorities or mission or other agendas which you know are close to the SMT. So we're going to be getting that. Well, it's started to be developed now. There's a bit of a delay with, unfortunately, Susan Hill at NTU suddenly falling over this week with appendicitis. So a bit of a delay, but we're keen then to, when we get that draft tested out with you. So look out for that one. The other area where I need a bit of help, and it's early days, is the reporting. As I said, we spend too much time reporting. So as a principle, what we want to do is to start with what reporting you currently do. The SDGs are a great framework, but they're very, very broad, and you could fall over very quickly trying to spread yourself very thinly. So it's completely acceptable to go, for my college, my university, these SDGs are really the ones we want to focus on in the first instance. And even the UN does that. Next year, for example, the UN is focusing particularly on cities and their livability and their sustainability. So it's utterly okay to focus and prioritize. But we're going to be exploring how we handle the reporting, because we want to spend more time doing than reporting. But what reporting we do needs to be accurate, not greenwash, and helpful to see where actually we as a sector are struggling. So if you are interested in being part of the mapping work, get in touch with us directly. If you've got any thoughts or any interesting examples that you've come across from other sectors, perhaps other countries, do get in touch with us at the info@EAUC link or directly with me. So thank you. So we're cracking through the time. Sophie, I don't know if you had a chance to have a look at any of the comments or chats, but I think I'm just going to hand it over to the floor to see if there are any questions. Sophie, I'm not sure if you unmute people or how it works, but I'll leave you with that.
The easiest thing to do is, if anyone has a question, if you just unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to, it will automatically take the Zoom to you, and then you have the floor. In terms of actually looking at the group chat, we've had Sandra from Leicester. They're currently teaching using the curriculum transformation programme, and researching informally at Rose's and similar. Georgie's very kindly popped up her link, which will take you to the UE sustainability report, so you can access that and have a look at kind of what's going on there. Some other people have mentioned that they're thinking of doing some bits and bobs at their university, so it'd be interesting to hear a little bit maybe from them what they would like to achieve, and maybe some issues or some questions they may have around it, which is obviously something that we can then bring up and utilise the learning network and so on and so forth. So does anybody have kind of any questions, or would like to kind of bring up their topics a little bit further? Yeah, Georgie, I've just had your comment through. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, I just wanted to say something about the approach that we've taken at UE in terms of prioritising individual SDGs, and I absolutely agree, Ian, that sometimes it seems and might in fact be the most useful way forward. In terms of individual program teams, just as an example, their initial response sometimes is that they cannot see any existing or potential even alignment between certain SDGs and the discipline that they are coming from with it. And our sort of return comment to them has been, okay, but firstly, let's have a look and see whether in fact there are some, because invariably we always find something that's of relevance in terms of issues. And then it becomes a question of, are they currently represented in the program and in the curriculum? And if the answer is no, then we're encouraging program teams to think about whether they are happy with that position and whether that's good enough. And if it is, because they have a very strictly controlled curriculum, which is accredited by a professional body, and there really is no wriggle room for incorporating new content or issues, then so be it. But at least having made that, undertaken that thought process, they can justify why, in presenting perhaps a visual map that shows limited involvement of certain issues, they've got a defensible return comment to that. So I just wonder whether that is something that could be thought about in the reporting. If you are looking to develop a reporting template, it's what is our ultimate ambition, and what's the ultimate goal, and is it about a journey, and that in the interim we prioritize certain objectives and certain goals, but in the longer term we think about institutional whole, or is it perhaps about the sector as a whole?
Thank you very much for that, Georgie. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to that? Any other sort of queries or concerns, or how they'd like to implement things? Iain, I think you're still on mute.
Good. Sorry, Sophie. Thank you. While people are considering that, what do you see as one challenge, one argument which your own executive is likely to throw back at you if you proposed that the university or the college signs this? What can you see their gut reaction going to be? Oh God, not another initiative. Oh no, what's it going to cost us? What about the reporting? What do you see as a thing that they're definitely likely to throw back at you?
Okay, we've just had a comment come through on the chat box from S. Robertson, which says, this is one of our challenges. There is confusion, and so it'd be useful for the EAUC to map SDGs against the Life Index and the People and Planet League. So thank you for that, and I know that's something we're definitely thinking about.
That's a really good point. And definitely, yes, we will be doing that. And probably, I mean, Life is now quite well established and old, so it needs updating. And we see this as the perfect opportunity to try to align the whole institution approach with the SDGs. That's a great suggestion. Any other problems that you can see coming up?
Okay, thanks, Deborah. So Deborah's got a concern about the academic pushback. You know, it's another request, and then and how that will impact time and resources to include it in the curriculum, because obviously everybody's incredibly busy, and actually how is this all going to slot in with day-to-day working and so on and so forth. So thank you for that, Deborah. I think that's probably a concern that everybody else has as well. Okay.
So John makes an interesting point about how we convey this to senior leadership. One of the things I've heard fed back to me from other executives is actually, because I talked about this common language that is evolving across the sector and sectors, and actually the SDGs are becoming a lens through which research funders and industry and governments are starting to look in a consistent way. So some universities have actually recognized that if they start using this language and aligning their research, for example, they're actually finding it better to position themselves in terms of grant or research funding, but also looking for international partners to collaborate with on research. So that does tend to get the interest of senior management, but in the guidance that we develop, it will definitely be enlarging on that. Back to you, Sophie.
Okay, Peter's just mentioned that he'd like to comment on their approach. So Peter, if you'd like to unmute and yeah, please share your findings.
Okay, hi everybody. I think I just wanted to make a comment about just going back to Whole Earth, which we had here for a year, which resulted in a lot of critical feedback, criticism of the approach, criticism of the exhibition, and a lot of engagement at an academic and learning level, all of which was really good. One of the key criticisms was it was too global. I think there were comments about a lot of the photographs being perhaps a bit obvious, and comments from students saying that, you know, these things are happening in Kent. Why do we have to highlight them in other parts of the world? And our response to that is, with the SDGs, is we are, and this is a working title, we're not going to kind of use this, we come up with the idea of developing a whole Kent. Now this is actually a program, we're focusing all our events, all our work going forwards, and trying to link what we do to our influence in the local community in Kent. We're a very regionally based organisation. And so that we then focus in on particular SDGs and bring them a local focus, so that there's a very much a reference to the external world, but bringing those SDGs into the sphere of influence of our staff and our students and the organisation itself. If you given the fact that we educate a large proportion of the teachers and health professionals in Kent, you know, this seemed to be a very obvious way forward, and also brings it within the sphere of a lot of the research that's being done in the organisation. So it's early days, but that is our approach going forwards.
Thank you very much for that, Peter. Is there anyone who would like to maybe comment on that, or would it have anything else to add?
Sophie, there might be a question or two that pops in, so I think we'll start to wind down. But my final sort of challenge mission to you all is, well, we can sign it. We each can sign it. So please do consider doing that. But our focus here is on getting our leadership to sign and orientate the work of the university, the college, around these amazing world's to-do list that is really quite empowering, but unrivaled. We've never had anything like this alignment before, so we've got to grab this opportunity. So I really was impressed with the UE approach of the Vice-Chancellor and the President of the Student Union. NUS have been very supportive and engaged, and we very much value that. And I think the student voice in this space is key. So we're actually going to be even evolving the Accord website to ensure that the space for the head of the institution and the head of the union actually get the recognition. It's a powerful shared message. So consider that as well. So Sophie, I'll hand over back to you. Thank you from my perspective to you all. This is a very encouraging activity and could be valuable in helping get better recognition for what you do, what we all do, and the value of education in solving the world's problems. So thank you for that. Thank you to our speakers. Sophie, I'll hand back to you to finish any final comments or chats and to close us down.
Thank you very much, Iain. Thank you also to Maureen. She's just commented, I think, in response to Deborah's question in regards to how we can involve the academic side of things. What I'm going to do is I've actually got a copy of the transcript of the group chat, so I'll issue that around following the meeting, along with a link to the webinar, and that will be made available. I'm just going to reiterate, if you haven't signed the SDG Accord, please visit www.sdgaccord.org, where you can sign. Once you are a signatory, then I'll encourage you to go on the Sustainability Exchange, where you can join our learning network, and that's the bits and bobs I showed you earlier. Thank you ever so much to all of our speakers for joining in. There's been some really useful information that's kind of been born of this, and as I mentioned, this is the first in a series of webinars we'll be doing on the SDG Accord. There'll be one coming in regards to reporting, and it's going to just, you know, keep getting bigger and bigger. So please do keep checking the events page and see further webinars will be coming up very, very shortly. So that's it from me. Thank you everybody for joining, and again, if you have any questions, please email me after the webinar. So thank you very much. Goodbye.